Mayor Pete Buttigieg, he entered the Democratic primary not that long ago, and when he did, I don't think a lot of people across the country knew who he was, but we're like a month into his candidacy and already it looks like a number of media outlets have fallen in love. So let's have a conversation about his candidacy. To give you an idea of what I mean, we've taken the headlines of a few articles recently. Why Pete Buttigieg is having a 2020 moment from CNN. Pete Buttigieg is having his moment from the National Review. So they got CNN and the National Review. Why you love Mayor Pete from the New York Times. That's a fun one.
I love that one. No, New York Times. It's why you love Mayor Pete.
See, who is Pete Buttigieg? The gay millennial mayor the Democrats didn't see coming from Vogue. Pete Buttigieg's favorite book is Ulysses, and that's great. That's a weird, I want to read that one actually. After Obama, Democrats need a new theory of change. Pete Buttigieg thinks he's got it from Vox. And is Pete Buttigieg a transformational candidate from New York Magazine? So there's actually quite a bit of thematic overlap between outlets you wouldn't necessarily normally categorize together about him. And all of those, it's only been a few weeks.
What Pete Buttigieg can do for your skin.
But to be fair, they wrote very similar articles about Bernie Sanders. Why you love Bernie Sanders by the New York Times. Right, that didn't happen.
Yeah, they should do that. And so what's interesting about this is that, look, he's had a town hall, and I watched his town hall. I thought he was fine on most issues. I disagree with him significantly on a couple of the most important ones. But it was fine, he was interesting, but there's a lot of candidates in the race right now for so many different outlets to seemingly all coalesce around one, when as of right now, he's at 2.3% in Real Clear Politics average of recent 2020 Democratic primary polls, placing him in 7th place.
He's got Joe Mentum.
He's got Joe Mentum, he's got Pete Mentum. So look, 7th place in this primary means something because there's like 35 people running, but that's still 2.3%. And they seem to be getting ahead of themselves just a little bit, I think. Including, by the way, I just want to read one more graphic. So Chris Cillizza got quite a bit of strike back from this tweet. The $20 million for Harris makes Buttigieg's $7 million look that much better. People are not a fan of that tweet necessarily. So why do you think it is that out of all of the candidates, I mean, we could be in a Hickenlooper moment or an Inslee moment or whatever. There's so many. But so many of the media outlets seem to be coalescing around him.
Can I just time out and say, we just got done talking about climate change and the $5 million, which is a lot to repair a couple of military bases. But now we see these numbers like 12 million and 7 million, and even a Bernie Sanders campaign. I can't believe it's 2019 and we still don't have publicly funded elections, and we're still raising millions and millions of dollars to run candidates, to get them onto these town halls on major mainstream news corporations that are still privately funded, fossil fuel industries, and that's
frustrating.
That all this money, what happens when they all lose? Where does it go?
So
what could we have done with it? So anyway, I just want to preface that.
Yeah. But that actually goes to the heart of the Pete Buttigieg conversation, because Bernie Sanders is raising it from small donors, but Buttigieg and a lot of others are getting bigger donors, and so they have to walk a different line. So Buttigieg, I think, is a really talented politician, and so to answer John's question, I think that's where it's coming from. He is really smart, has these like, and I'll join the rest of the media in going over the top, and then I'll tell you, what the real issues are. It has this superhero moments, right? Where there'll be a symphony playing, and then they'll zoom out, and it'll be Pete Buttigieg playing the piano. You're like, what? Right?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so on his, the other day he was at work and he only had like 15 minutes, and somebody came by and said, oh, we're about to have a C-section, have our first kid, but we're not married. Could you marry us? He marries them outside the bathroom or wherever he did it, right? And you're like, whoa. He liked a book a lot, so he learned Norwegian to read it. There was a moment in a hospital in South Bend where they had this Persian family and nobody knew how to speak to them. And all of a sudden a guy shows up and speaks to them and translates for an hour so he can get medical attention. They're like, when did you start working at the hospital? He's like, I didn't, I'm Mayor Pete. So like these amazing, amazing stories about Buttigieg, and it's hard not to be enraptured by that, especially if you're the mainstream press. But the reality of it is, who cares, right? And here's what I mean by that. I love that he speaks Norwegian. I love that, and Persian and 7 languages overall. I love that he's smart. He went to Harvard, he's a Rhodes Scholar, he's an Afghan veteran. He got 7-month unpaid leave from being mayor to go serve in Afghanistan because he's in the Naval Reserve. And so
seems a bit selfish.
Okay, so yes, those attributes are wonderful, and God, it'd be great to have a smart president again. But what are your policies?
Yeah.
What are your policies? And so that gets to Francesca's point. He walks the line, and he does a great job of walking the line. I think he's even better than Obama. Having now watched him a lot, I spent a good deal of time watching Buttigieg tape, okay? Like some people watch film tape, I watch political tape. That's my film tape.
Buddha tape.
And no, I even watched how to pronounce his name in 3 different ways.
Oh, okay, right.
So,
in Norwegian?
And I learned Norwegian to pronounce his name. No, okay. And so what he does is he says, oh, I'm for change and it's important to this country's in transformation, etc. Now, I'm for Medicare for all, but we're gonna find a way to get there and we're not gonna get rid of private insurance. What? Wait, hold on. What did you just say? Well, then you're not for Medicare for all. Yes, I am eventually. Oh, so you're not for Medicare for all now. Eventually, he said, well, I'm for a public option.
That's what he's in favor of.
No, you're in favor of a public option. That's okay. Don't say Medicare for all. But what he's doing is reflecting back onto you what you want to hear. So if you wanted to hear Medicare for all, you heard it. If you wanted to hear public option, you heard it. If you wanted to hear I'm not getting rid of private insurance, you heard it, right? And he does it in such a way that I had to pause the tape several times to be like, what did he just say, right? And if you rewind the tape and watch it again, it's actually empty. And he could be a great politician and policy person and a great statesman, but we don't know yet because he won't tell us. That was actually a rare situation on Medicare for All where Stephanopoulos pressed them, and that's why we got, and great job by Stephanopoulos to do a number of follow-up questions to actually get to some policy position. But 9 out of 10 times he does not state a policy position, it's on purpose. So why did I say it's in relation to what Francesca mentioned? It's the reason he's not telling you policy positions is not just to appeal to voters, but to appeal to donors. Hey, don't worry, donors, I'm not getting rid of private insurance. Hey, don't worry, voters, I'm for Medicare for all. I'd like to have my cake and eat it too, in Norwegian. So that's Pete Buttigieg so far. Maybe he gets better, maybe he starts to explain his policies more, but for now, it's a little empty, and that's why the mainstream media loves him. On the surface, the Rhodes Scholar and all those amazing stories are perfect, with no threatening substance behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think the approach is a little bit similar to some of the immediate coverage of Beto O'Rourke's candidacy. That it's like young, dynamic person, speaks with a lot of passion, seems really confident, has an interesting personal background and history, cool hobbies and everything, and you can kind of hear what you want, at least now. One came through Congress, one came through being a mayor, a little bit different. And I get sort of the strategy that there's so many candidates right now. Just keep your head down a little bit, maybe let it get weeded out just a little bit. But the problem is that at some point you're gonna have to appeal to either the progressives voters or the more centrist voters. And there's already a couple of, like he's number 7th. 1 through 6 includes a couple progressives, a couple centrists. And so can you really afford to not actually differentiate yourselves from any of them for more than a month, more than 3 months, 6 months? How long can you actually do that? How many debates are you gonna get through before we know either who you are or that you're no one?
I will also say, just on the surface, I don't think that you can fight fire with Chopin and Norwegian. Sorry, like we're in a fire moment right now, and we need an extinguisher, not someone who's just gonna be like, I was a Rhodes Scholar. Doesn't cut it. You need actual plan, and you need to be specific on it.
Yeah.
So,
we're in a fire moment, not a Buttigieg moment, and so the mainstream media can't wrap their heads around it because they all think the status quo is wonderful. And if you think the status quo is wonderful, well, a bright young mayor out of South Bend might be the ticket for you. You might think, well, I just want to get back to sanity, and so. And look, let me be fair to him on that too. They say, well, a main problem is he lacks a lot of experience. He's mayor of South Bend. Trump lacks all experience in life, right? And so I don't think that's the issue at all. They also then are like, yes, but he's from the heartland. I don't care. People from California are also Americans, and so are people from New York and Rhode Island and Hawaii. Oh, but he's from Indiana. Who cares? Don't hold it against him, and don't hold it as some sort of badge of honor where he was born and where he happens to be mayor. we're all willing to give him a perfectly fair chance, but he's got to tell us what he would do if he became president. Otherwise, not remotely interested.
Yeah. And we're still more than a month out, like a couple months out from the first debates, and we're gonna have 1,000. So a lot can happen, but I personally am not going to wait until we're already in the thick of the debates if the narrative is already being set by some of the biggest media outlets in the country. We can adapt. Like if he comes out and he's awesome in the debates, he's very specific, and he puts out a bunch of Elizabeth Warren inspired, super specific, awesome, radical proposals, great, we'll update our evaluations then. But we are paying attention now too.
Yeah, and one more thing that cuts both ways. He did have a great essay that he won a contest on back in 2000 about a profile in courage. You know who he wrote it about? Bernie Sanders. So that goes in a lot of directions. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.